Hi, I'm Ilan Goldstein, and you're watching the Scrum Shortcut series. In this video, we will be focusing on retrospective techniques. To keep things nice and fresh, it's a good idea to shake up the format of your sprint retrospectives throughout the project. In this shortcut, I'm going to introduce you to two of my favorite and most effective retro techniques that I've nicknamed circles and bubbles respectively. Starting with circles. This technique employs an affinity mapping variation. For those unfamiliar with affinity mapping, it is a graphical tool designed to link loose, unstructured ideas into collective groups. Before reviewing the technique, let's identify the classic 4 questions often asked in Scrum retrospectives. What did we do well? What can we do better? What should we try next time? And what issues do we need to escalate? Now, with this circles technique, I prefer to simplify things even further by asking only 2 questions. What can we improve? And what are we doing well? So getting back to the technique, you first need to draw a horizontal scale on your whiteboard. On the very left of the scale, write the label needs improvement. In the middle, jot down the more neutral OK label. And on the right, add the more encouraging going well label. Now, in keeping with the Scrum sticky note tradition, hand each team member a bunch of sticky notes. Ask them now to start writing their thoughts and issues on them. Once complete, direct the team to start sticking the notes on the wall, wherever along the scale they feel each note fits best. Be sure to time box this step to avoid the dreaded analysis paralysis. Once everyone places their notes on the board, it is time to align similar items to form groups. Next, use a nice thick marker, non-permanent or your issues will remain forever, to draw circles around the notes that reflect similar thoughts that are grouped closely together. Ignore those outliers for now. It will be rare for you not to identify a few common themes during this step. Now, once the groupings are completed, it is wise to briefly discuss any outliers with the team. More often than not, outliers result from misinterpretation or lack of understanding rather than from conflicting opinions. Finally, as a team, address the circled groups in priority order. Items further to the left will typically be of higher priority. And identify some actions to be followed up on in the forthcoming sprint to help address the improvement areas. I like this approach for a few reasons. It avoids putting anyone on the spot or in the spotlight. There is plenty of physical motion which keeps the team alert and active. It is tactile and visual, which always makes life a bit more interesting. The team is also able to immediately gauge the collective priorities by viewing the sticky note groupings on the wall. Now let's explore the bubbles technique, which is definitely my preferred approach for the first few retrospectives that you run with a freshly formed Scrum team. Bubbles works really well because it promotes immediate collaboration, helps everyone get to know one another in a non-contrived fashion, and again, doesn't put anyone on the spot. So, how does it work? First, you need to come to the session prepared with paper and pens for everyone in the group. This technique works best with an even number of team members, but you can easily make it work with uneven numbers. For demonstration purposes, let's say you have a team of 8. The first step requires each person to document on paper the 3 most urgent issues that he or she feels should be focused on in the upcoming sprint. I recommend a 5-minute time box for this step. Next, get the individuals to pair up with a buddy. Here you will obviously have 4 pairs, but there is no problem having groups of 3 instead if you have an uneven number. Again, during a 5-minute time box, ask the pairs to decide, based on their combined lists, which 3 items should take priority overall. You can probably see where this is heading by now, but in case you haven't guessed, the next step is to join two pairs together so that you now have two groups of 4. Once again, time box this step, although you may offer a little extra time because you now have groups of 4 debating the merits of their list to determine the top 3. The next step is to form a single group of 8 to determine which 3 issues bubble right to the top of the top. By this stage, you should find that everyone's inhibitions have been dropped and that a healthy, open debate can now ensue, following which you will have determined what should be focused on next sprint. Now, don't disregard all of the other valid suggestions that were uncovered in the earlier rounds of bubbles. Instead, document them so that when you return for the subsequent retrospective, there is a healthy starting point to help get the ball rolling. Suggestions that were previously lower on the list may, at a later stage, become the top priority focus points. Finally, the team can rinse and repeat the same bubbles activity to identify and acknowledge the successful behaviors and processes that the team wishes to explicitly keep active within the next sprint. Now, when you're working with a truly battle-hardened group of Scrum aficionados, my advice is to forget about any formalized structure for your retros. It will just appear contrived. When a team is comfortable in its own skin, you'll have no trouble getting the collective group to speak up and express their concern or joy with the status quo. Instead, simply go out for lunch or a coffee with a pad and pen and shoot the breeze. Inspection and adaptation is the name of the game, and the sprint retrospective is vital to ensure that your team is constantly improving. Numerous techniques can be employed for this session, so feel free to vary the techniques to keep life interesting and fresh. Esther Derby and Diana Larson's book, Agile Retrospectives, offers a whole host of different options that you can employ. Most important, whatever happens, don't skip your retrospectives, irrespective of what is going on in the background. And that's it for retrospective techniques. I'll see you in the next video for another Scrum shortcut.